that need to, gain more skills, be a higher level technician has sort of quieted down. And now I'm really interested in obviously maintaining my skills and, keeping the level I have, which takes a lot of time, but just telling a story and relating to an audience and also just entertaining myself too as a performer.
She's a contortionist, aerialist, and acrobat.
She has toured with Cirque du Soleil, appeared in The Greatest Showman, and with the Metropolitan Opera.
Anna Venizelos joins us on today's episode.
My name is Nancy Magarill. I'm a singer, songwriter, composer, performer, graphic and web designer.
And I'm Peter Michael Marino, and I'm a writer, producer, creator, performer, and educator.
We are New York-based artists you may or may not have heard of.
And we are here to introduce you to other artists you may or may not have heard of. So Nancy, since we started this podcast, has just been obsessed with having a circus person on
Oh my
the
God,
show.
I'm so excited.
So I was like, I have a favorite person. She is a contortionist. Nancy's like, oh my God, a contortionist. I love it.
You have to have such an unbelievable control of your body, of your core. It's so exciting to me because it's the ultimate, I think, as an artist.
Yes, it's definitely a lot about control. Absolutely.
Did you always know you wanted to do this? How did this happen for you?
Yeah, were you just doing a back bend one day when you were 3 and someone's like, that kid's got talent.
Can I just tell you, as a kid, I could never do a back bend. I had no sense of my core at all as a kid.
But now you're doing them day and night.
No, I still can't do them.
Do you practice yoga?
I actually work with a private Pilates person who I'd like to have on as well, because it's something as a singer that I really think is really important as an actor, as a human being.
Yeah.
So let's go to you though. Tell me about it. How did this start for you?
I was always a very physical person. I was a mover. That's how I like to express myself. And so that led me into contortion.
Nancy, Anna's sister also is a contortionist. I met them as a duo, actually.
That's right.
Do you actually do an act together?
We do. We do a sister act.
It's really great. Sister act. Yeah. I never ever thought of that. Of course, that's what it is. Where was she in this timeline?
So Emily, my sister, she actually grew up doing horseback riding. So that was her thing.
Yeah, I rode horses. Yeah, we showed horses.
Where is this? Where are you guys growing up?
So we grew up in Athens in Greece.
Oh, wow.
My dad was Greek. Yeah. My mom's from the States. So I lived in Greece, actually, until I was 16 years old.
Do you think that the Greek education system is, I don't know if you'd have anything to compare it to, but more sort of encouraging kids to do physical things than us?
Well, actually, I went to an international school, so it was not really, I wouldn't say it was the Greek system. It was more the American system, but with a very international student base, which was, it was great because we got exposed to people from all over the world. Yeah, I think I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I just think that was a time when kids were encouraged to be more physical, the
Reagans, right? The Reagans were big on that, weren't they? The guy whose body you could see in his jumpsuit.
Well, she was in Greece, so
I grew up in Greece, so
right.
there was a lot of Reagan going on.
But they did try to make us go outside and play. I believe that's what they did.
I think my parents were definitely into that. Get outside, play. There was none of this helicopter parenting. It was just go play. Don't be a nuisance.
Same way.
Don't be a nuisance. Children are meant to be seen, not heard. Get out of our hair type of thing.
And they weren't so worried about you being abducted. And probably also in Greece, it probably wasn't as bad as it was here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Were you able to do the balance beam, the bars in gym class as a kid? I was horrified because I could never lift myself up with the pegs. It always made me crazy. Or go up the rope, all that stuff. You could probably do all of that, right? I
was kind of naturally good at that stuff. Yeah. I was definitely I had fear and I had to overcome the fear, but I was naturally good at it. Yeah, I was always small, so that helped.
What was your fear?
I was afraid of heights.
Oh, interesting.
Yikes.
Yeah, I was really
still?
afraid of heights. Yeah, I think I'm reasonably afraid of heights. I'm not terrified, but if I'm on the roof of a building, I don't really want to go and look over the edge. That's,
But you don't have to worry about that for your work, though, as a contortionist, do you?
Actually, I started as an aerialist, which is funny.
Oh, then you definitely have to.
So yes, I spent 3 years with Cirque du Soleil as an aerialist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of my first foray as a professional into circus.
So wait, how did you know? So you're like in your 20s and you're examining these other ways to use your body. When did you kind of realize it was an art?
Yeah, that's a good
Because you
question.
could have just tried to be in the Olympics, right? Or
Which I really wanted to, actually.
I bet.
Yeah, like I really, really wanted to. Tried to convince my parents, but they weren't into that. So
It's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money and time, and
Yeah.
I
had a friend who trained as an ice skater, and it was a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. And the parents have to be very, very involved.
Yep.
So yeah, I came back to it in my 20s, and I think I first realized it was an art when I saw a video of Quidam, which is one of the older Cirque du Soleil shows on TV, and I was just mesmerized. I was like, what is, I didn't know what Cirque du Soleil was. I was like, what is this? This is amazing, insane, just so moving, everything, just kind of
it's really
hit
beautiful.
me on all levels. So beautiful, so beautiful. And from then on in, I became obsessed. Like, I'm not kidding. I would literally watch Quidam like on repeat over and over and over. And and then I kind of figured out how to get into circus, to get my circus training. I moved to Montreal for a while.
Oh, that's the place to go, isn't it?
That's the place to go.
Even clowns go to Montreal.
Yeah. I didn't know that. What's in Montreal?
Yeah, it has a very, very rich circus culture.
Yeah.
So they're very European in that sense. And in Europe, as you know, the arts are very well funded and supported.
Yes.
And so this whole sort of vibe is what's going on in Montreal. So the arts are very supported, very well funded, and circus in particular, which is really cool.
Is there like one particular school there that everybody's trying to get into, or are there a bunch of different schools?
There's a few good ones. The National Circus School in Montreal is kind of the main one that people know about, but there's definitely a couple. Yeah, and that's where I went, actually.
Wow.
How long were you there?
Yeah.
So I lived in Montreal on and off for about 3.5 years, and that included all my training and then my preparation to go on tour with Cirque du Soleil as well.
Did Emily do that also?
No.
Wow.
No, she didn't. Yeah. Wow. Completely different trajectory.
Yeah. So you went on tour with Cirque du Soleil.
I did.
You didn't get to move to Las Vegas for a year.
No. I
don't think you'd like that.
No, I think I would like that.
Really?
It's so funny. Yeah.
Because of the gig or because of the town?
No, I think I like stability, and I like to go home at night.
Wait, hold on. The contortionist just said, I like stability. That's so deep.
Love stability. Yeah. And I like to just be able to walk away from work at night, It was hard being on tour because you just felt you were always with the cast, you know?
Did you guys travel by bus or fly?
So we would fly, but you get on the bus to go to the site, you spend 7-8 hours there, then you get on the bus and you go back to your residence, your hotel, and it felt like too much kind of. But it was an amazing experience.
That was your late 20s?
Yeah, so I did that. I trained in the studios in Montreal to go on tour for about 4 months. And then I was on tour from about 24 years old to maybe like 27, 28.
Wow.
And you had to audition for Cirque du Soleil, didn't you? Or were you plucked out of the...
Of course.
That's something, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that like? What's the audition process like?
Well, I was very lucky, and it was a little different back then. I had a friend who was in Cirque. And I was like, on this track, I became obsessed with getting into Cirque. And actually, this one particular act, too, it's called the Contortion and Silks Act. It's very iconic, actually. It's like on a red silk, and this woman does this, and she's like in a nude bodysuit. So it's very androgynous. It's actually a suicide. So it's a very, kind of deep, profound act. But anyway, so I became obsessed with this act, and I was like, I'm going to do this act. And so I had this friend who was in Cirque, and he made an introduction for me to one of their talent scouts. And, at that time, you could kind of just call them. Like, there was no online application process.
Right.
They would have these big group auditions, but I remember just calling her like 5 or 6 times until I finally got her. And I was like, I'm in Montreal. I really need to come show you my act. And, I'm so-and-so's friend. And she was like, all right, fine. Come to the studio.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I managed to score a private audition basically, which was really, really great.
Yeah.
I still went through all the stuff. Like they have you do all these different things: acting, dance, acrobatics, strength, flexibility, conditioning. So I went through all of that. And then they called me pretty soon after and said, we'd like to offer you a training opportunity. So then they bring you to the studio and you go through, it's kind of like another audition process, but they select like 60 acrobats worldwide. And they bring everybody in for a summer. So it's like 3.5 months.
Wow.
And they place you where they think you do best. Like they try you out here, they try you out there. And then at the end of that period, some people will get contracts and some people won't.
Wow.
Do they pay you while you're there or for that time?
A very small stipend, yeah.
God, that's a lot of time to have people come in and basically audition.
It is. It's very stressful. It's like a 3.5 month audition.
Yeah, you have to be able to afford to do that too.
Yeah.
Are you in their database now?
No, I don't think so.
Are you in anybody's database? Are you like, is that how you're looking? Is that how you're looking for your next gig? I mean, I'm in the database for Spiegel Tent, Spiegel World. You know, I'm like,
Spiegel
maybe I
World.
should get in another one while I'm at it. Let me get something else together.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think I'm in any databases at the moment. Maybe I should get on top of that. But we can talk about that. We can talk about like, you know, kind of what my goals are for my career now.
Wait, I just have to tell you real quickly, I'm obsessing on your hair. Like it looks like you have the long, like how long is your hair? You have this
very
dark.
long. It's very
I've
fine.
never
It's
seen it
very
that long. That's really long.
And it was so funny because the way it was around your shoulders, I was like, it looked like you were either wearing a fur vest. I'm like this silky vest. I'm like, okay, I could kill because I have like nothing left. And I'm like, oh my God, I would kill to have your hair. It's beautiful. But anyway, well, let's talk about your goals. What are your goals?
Yeah.
Because you're an artist now. You're an artist.
I'm an artist.
Well, it sounds like you have always been.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this is like, you know, you're at the point where you're teaching people how to do this, and I guess what I'm kind of like, you know, I'm so not athletic. So I guess what I'm trying to find is like, is there a difference? Like, is there a point where you're like, okay, the athleticism is just in my bones now.
Yeah.
You know, it's in my DNA. Now I'm the artist. I have to dream up acts. I have to visualize costumes, looks, characters, like all that stuff. Like you had to, who were you in the one of the last Moonrises? You had to end Act 1 as Medusa or somebody.
Yeah, I think I've been like 3 or 4 different goddesses.
Yeah, and you got to like come up with shit. You know, like I guess she probably has these eyebrows, or you know, moves this way. Or
no, I mean that's a great question. I think about it a lot. Kind of that balance and also that transformation from athlete to artist, and how to kind of reconcile the two and make them both work, because there is a huge level of athleticism, obviously, but at the same time, there is this need for artistry and for being a performer and for telling a story. And that's actually been so exciting for me as I get older and as I progress in my career. Kind of that need to, you know, gain more skills, be a higher level technician has sort of quieted down. And now I'm really interested in obviously maintaining my skills and, you know, keeping the level I have, which takes a lot of time, but just telling a story and relating to an audience and also just entertaining myself too as a performer. You know, I don't want to go on autopilot. I'm not one of those performers that can just, you know, sort of turn on autopilot. Like I want to come to the performance fresh each time and be very interested in what I'm doing. And hopefully then that'll compel others to be interested to watch.
How do you make it interesting every time? I mean, so
that's
a
not
little back.
Pete's favorite.
That's not my thing.
Yeah.
Are you creating your own pieces now, or is Moonrise something where you develop your own characters, or is it a piece where you're doing other people's work?
Yeah, so Moonrise was the show that Pete and I did together for a while. It was a show created by somebody, and then each act embodies a different goddess. So it's based around 13 moon goddesses, and each act is kind of dedicated to one goddess, one specific goddess.
So we met on a show called Moonrise. Yeah. You came into the show. Help me out. I don't. Oh, yeah. Wait. You guys were there when I joined the show in Brooklyn?
Yeah, so we came in spring of 2022. You were already there. Okay. It was when we made that switch over and we started the cocktail show.
Oh, that's right.
And who is we?
My sister and I. Yeah, my sister and I were performing together at the time.
Okay, folks, this is how a lot of circus is, but this is a good example of it. So our dressing room in Brooklyn, because they turned a warehouse into a space. Like they literally created the stage, the rigging, like there was nothing and they made a thing. And so of course
magic of theater.
Yeah, the last
Yeah.
people who get the attention are the performers, which means that you are
course.
crammed. You have to climb up a ladder, which is not
Yeah.
an easy ladder to climb. I learned very early on. And then you have to warm up around the lighting board and the soundboard and costumes and Pete and other people on like different levels, because nothing is level. It's all
Exactly.
platforms. And when you do what Anna does and what Emily does, and I guess everybody else in the show does, all they do is warm up,
Oh, yeah.
warm up, do their show, warm down, cool down,
Yeah.
cool down, cool down, cool down. It is full 2-hour experience for them. And everybody else in the show had, you would have your act or an act and a half or, whatever it was, but also you were part of other people's acts in some
Right.
way.
You have
There's a lot
little
of,
cues during the show.
yeah, there's a lot of pageantry in the show and stuff like that. And it just, I think you were the first person to just say, fuck this, I'm moving downstairs into that weird hallway. Right. So I would always come in and be stepping over, and I'm just like, oh, this is such a much better place, actually. Like, I'm so glad that you have your own space.
But Pete, you never stepped on me. I definitely got stepped on by people sometimes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
In the hallway.
That was a rough hallway. And then where we finished off many years later, maybe a year ago, the show moved to Edition Hotel in Times Square. And it was like, oh, right, we saw the room, and it's like this fucking huge room, and it's got video screens. So it's like so fancy. And then they're like, oh, and here's your dressing room. And it's like half of a conference room, if you're lucky. You're lucky. Plus, there's a snake in there in a giant cooler.
Oh my God, that would freak me out.
And then for a little while, there was a baby and a snake. There was a baby and a snake. And the other thing in the circus world, Nancy, you might want to keep this in mind, is everyone's allowed to come backstage all the time. If they're like third cousins with the person on stage, they can just hang out in the dressing room. And I come from the theater, and it's like you need like a pass to come backstage. Like nobody hangs out backstage. Circus people, they hang out backstage.
And there's not even a lot of room for that.
No, so I would literally be like just trying to find my corner, my space, my little area. And Anna was just always super, super respectful of what I was trying to accomplish on stage, which was create comedy. And then second, was very conscious of my emotional journey, which was hard. I'm a perfectionist. I want things to be good, but I also am very loosey-goosey. And then you mix that with our boss, Lara Jacobs, who I love. She just comes from a very kind of different angle as far as all of that goes, other than everything has to be perfect, right? Everything has to be professional. But as far as the development and the putting it together, I just come from a whole different place. So I would just be very emotional at rehearsals while Anna was stretching, and she'd be, need a hug? Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how we all relate to the experience of performing and our art and all that. And it also, I think that's the thing, just talking about the whole backstage experience. I did a show at the Players Theater, and it was the smallest backstage area. We were a cast of like 14 people.
Ooh.
And we had teeny tiny dressing room that we had to share. And the first week, they didn't do any laundry.
Oh, God.
And the lead character's clothing was so nauseating. And it was hanging right backstage, and I literally was gagging. All of us were like up in arms, and I finally said to the person running the show, "We're not going on unless you clean these costumes. We're not going on tomorrow night." And I was the only one. I was the oldest person there. I said, "This cannot go on. It's nauseating." But I think that whole space. But the point of what I was saying is having the space to prepare yourself before a show, not just physically, because physically is one thing as a dancer, as a singer, as a performer, and you have to, as a contortionist, dancer, actor, you need your muscles to be warm. But then on top of it, having your space to get into your head space, because there's not enough attention to that, right? Of what that takes to also perform. Because regardless, you are performing, and as you said, while Pete was getting the door, getting into that space because you want to be present and in the moment in the show every night. You're not walking through it. You are there because some people can do that. I can't do that either. And if I do that, I'll get completely lost. Being in the moment, and Pete, it sounds like you're the same way. You're present, especially because you probably improv a lot. You have to be present, and you have to be in that space to create. And that's a whole different world.
And share it with
Definitely.
a snake and a baby and
What kind of snake
a
was
hair
it, by the
hanger and
way?
it was a white boa constrictor, I think.
Yeah, I think we had a couple different ones. It
Yeah.
was large.
We had a small one in Brooklyn.
Mm.
That was a sweet one.
They tried to get me to handle that one, and I was like, I'm
I have
sorry,
a
I
friend who
can't.
would not come to see the show because there was a snake in it.
I
Yeah.
could go see a show with a snake in it as long as I knew it was in someone else's hands,
It
but don't
is.
put that thing near me. It's
Yeah.
and near baby where I would think, oh my God, you can't leave it in a room with a baby.
Circus people. No
Oh my
problem. Just
God.
another baby in a room with the
With a
cooler.
boa constrictor.
So yeah, Anna, let's talk about this. So like, yeah, you've got this act, you've got this point of view, right? You know, the act, there's a focus, which I think probably goes
Mm-hmm.
back to clown, right? Studying clown and being able to like tick everyone in the audience, you know, like
Mm.
visually.
What does that mean, tick everyone in the
I think I'm
audience?
using the wrong term, but it's like you're taking in everyone,
Oh.
like without looking like a lawn sprinkler, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're just catching the
You have
vibes of
to.
what everybody's about?
Yeah, I mean, you can see like young performers are just almost in their own space and own head. And it's
Yeah,
nice to see them grow. I mean, we've seen it happen with some young performers in Moonrise, that they grow so
totally.
much that they are able to face the audience, open up, be there, look
Yeah,
vulnerable, look
yeah,
sexy, look like you're doing something dangerous. That's
yeah,
another thing I learned was like, oh, a lot of this is like setting up that what I'm doing is a real challenge. You're nodding your head, Anna. Yeah, this is like a little
yeah.
circus trick that
It's a little trick. It's like what you're doing is yes, it's hard, but you're doing it well. You're executing it very well, but somehow you want to communicate to the audience that it's hard, that it's a moment where they should hold their breath, where
Yeah.
they should just be there with you, you know, hanging on. And yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing.
I learned as a performer that when I felt really confident and I thought my show was like kicking ass,
Mm.
that was where people felt the most alienated. But when I
Mm.
felt completely vulnerable and I was like, oh my God, that sucked or whatever it was, people would come up to me and go, oh my God, that show was so beautiful. And I think
Mm.
it's vulnerability. I think
Yeah.
people want to feel like you're letting them in somehow and that there's a sort of even though they may not even be aware of it, but whatever it is that you're showing a sense of vulnerability, even though you're not, because you
or
have to
yeah,
be
even I was going to
in
say even if
total
it's
control of your
manufactured, it's
body. Yeah.
manufactured.
Well, it sounds
Yeah.
like it is
You
when
know,
you're
like
talking
a
about that.
juggler is like I'm gonna juggle 8 balls in the air, right? So they
Yeah.
intentionally fuck it up a few
Mm.
times so that you're rooting for them, and that's
Oh,
to
that's
me.
so interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's what storytelling is. It's what storytelling
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
You are rooting for Little Red Riding Hood to get to her grandmother. You're rooting for Jack and Rose to stay together. And
Yeah.
you have to be rooting for somebody. So even like a contortionist, before doing some very dangerous looking trick, I'm sure that they're prepping themselves, but when you realize, oh, that's actually adding to the danger, that's adding to the suspense, that's adding to the challenge, that becomes part of the act. I mean, I know
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
watching Lara balances 13 giant bamboo leaves. I'm sure that's
Palm
not right.
fronds.
Palm
Yeah.
fronds. Thank you, bamboo leaves. I'm talking.
She'll love that.
She's gonna love that. She's not listening to this. Trust me. I'm not gonna let her. I know. I suddenly became a koala. I became a koala. But we've all watched that thing a lot of times. It's a 15-minute act that the audience
Mhm.
is dead silent through the entire thing because it's
And who is
just
this?
Lara Jacobs. She's the
Okay.
creator of
The
Moonrise
creator.
and comes
Okay.
from a
Mhm.
circus family as well. And
Mhm.
you're just watching her balance like one little thing, one little palm frond, and then another on top of, and then another on top of, and they keep extending out into the audience. And she's been doing it since she's very young. And so when
Mm.
you're watching it, you're like, oh, right there, there's always that spot where she goes, and we all go, oh, but it always happens in the same place.
And she's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, and I learned a lot. I
Yeah.
learned a lot from.
I mean, she did tell me that it's challenging for her. You know, it's not easy. So I totally get what you're saying about sort of creating that suspense, but I think there's real moments of it too. I mean, I know there
And
are
for
me.
you, yeah.
There's times like when I'm doing my contortion act, like recently I did one in a water bowl, so I'm wet while I'm doing it, and I do this one skill, and normally it would be very easy for me, but I'm like dripping wet. I can barely see. My hands are wet. I'm on an acrylic surface. And every time I do it, I'm like, am I going to make it?
What are you doing? What is it that you're actually doing that you...
So I'm doing a handstand.
Okay.
On this acrylic surface, hands wet, surface wet, water coming down my face, lights from below.
Yeah.
So you add all that in and it makes it.
First of all, the handstand alone for me is enough to make me a little like...
Then put it in water, then put it in an acrylic bowl, then put lights in it, and then put the bowl 10 feet in the air.
And there's no wall behind you.
There's no wall behind me.
You're holding, like, that is amazing to me that you can do that and just hold on there alone. That just to me.
But you developed that during the cocktail show, I think. That water.
Yeah,
right?
it was a little different. It was different structure. Now it's kind of, well, you saw it's like part of the stage now. Yes, it's a little different. But I mean, my point being, I kind of hate and love those moments because they're real, because like, I am afraid. I am like, I'm 90% sure, but there's 10% of like,
you're hitting the high note. Basically, you're hitting the high note. It's every artist, we all have that thing, that we're like, is it going to work tonight? Is it going to be, is the voice going to be there?
You got to have that. I think that's essential.
Absolutely.
Right. When you lose that, then you're losing your authenticity, which is the thing that you work so hard
then it's just rote and it's just work.
Yes.
Which it is work. It's always work.
Which is why I stop doing things when I'm aware that it's rote.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. I stop doing things when I realize it's a lot more work to look like I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
That's fair.
But I can't do rote. It's impossible. Even if I tried. Even my rote would be funny. That's just how I'm built.
This is one of the things we learned at the theater conservatory I went to, is that your job is to always keep it fresh and to always be in the moment. And I mean, Pete, we've talked about this before. That's almost part of the thrill of doing that work, is finding those ways to stay in the moment and make it new all the time. It's not going to work all the time that way, but that is part of the excitement of doing the work that we all do.
Totally. And it's exciting
not
for
you,
me.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was saying, I need to feel entertained. I need to feel committed to what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's not going to read,
Yeah.
And I'll just be bored. And then, it's just a big bore for everyone, right?
Yeah. Look, I just want to go back a second. I don't want to say that like people listening who do circus or don't, that it's not all, I'm not saying across the board, everyone's faking it. That's not what
No.
It's hard work. I mean, I can say like, I was in the show Stomp for a very long time, and we kind of learned, and like the final number is like a big freaking orgy of garbage cans and lids, just junk, and it's like very, very, it's very syncopated, and it's long. It's a long finale, and by then you're totally drenched, but you're also like, I just want to go out to eat, or I just want to get laid, or I just want to, I want to drink, whatever it is. Like you're done. You've done 90 minutes of really hard work.
Yeah.
And although you're probably tired, what you learn is how to look more tired, how to wipe sweat that might not actually be getting in your eyes, how to put on this face and then be able to turn around to the person next to you and go, what are we getting for dinner tonight? Like literally. And that's, that's like, I mean, like it's showbiz, right?
Absolutely.
We're charlatans. We're none of us are actually someone who is banging on whatever that story is. I don't know what the story is of Stomp, but what the story is of Moonrise. None of us are actually goddesses. But even I, like the first time I saw Moonrise, like I was like, wait, you're the same person that does that? Or like, asking questions like, how does your hair not fall out? We have a hair hanger in the show.
What does that mean?
Go ahead, Anna. You can describe it better than me.
It's a very specific technique of tying your hair in a way that creates a loop, and then you attach the hardware into that loop, and then you're connected by that, like to a point, and basically you're hanging from your hair.
From the center of your head.
And twists around and all that.
Exactly.
I can't even imagine how much that hurts.
Well, she would say when we had like a lot of tech, when we have long tech days, she said those are the worst. Because at the end of a long day of having your head up in this ring, your hair's falling out when you take it out.
Yeah.
But when you're just showing up to do your act, your hair's not falling out because your hair
Yeah.
is only up for 3
Well,
hours.
her hair. I mean, my
Her
hair
hair.
wouldn't last a second. I mean, it depends on how thick your hair is, how strong, or I mean, you can't do that if you have thin hair.
Right. You need a certain type
Yeah.
of hair and a certain amount of hair for sure.
Does she
Yeah.
put any, are there any tricks, like things that you can put in your hair that can make it so it is stronger? Like,
I mean, there's a whole process. This particular performer, she uses coconut oil, and it has to be very, very tight for her to feel secure. And there's a technique to, like, you braid it and you knot it in
Yeah.
a certain way.
you can't do a wig because that could easily come
No,
out.
Oh,
don't do a
no,
wig.
no,
Right?
no. Yeah,
That's a
no.
great
No
bit,
wigs.
actually.
Yeah, I've worn wigs in shows, but
Yeah.
that thing's going to come off because,
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
unless you're
Yeah.
like
Yes,
stapling it
a
into
wig
your
comes
brain.
off and going in a fast elevator. Of course, it's going to come off
Right.
and your face
Yeah.
into the air.
Yeah, totally. I had a terrible wig moment in Cirque du Soleil once. So, like Pete said, you know, you do your main act, but then you do little character bits during the show. And I played this one character that was kind of this crazy clown, and she would wear this red wig. And basically all I had to do was run from upstage to downstage, like do this big gesture, and then turn around and like tear ass back. So I really never did a great job pinning this wig in, because I was like, you know, I'm just going upside down.
Right. You're
You
running,
know,
go
no, I'm
right,
just
in and out.
running in, out. It's not a big deal. It's like a 30-second thing. So anyway, as you can imagine, I come running in. I do my big gesture. The wig, it has a chin strap, so the headpiece flies off. So now it's around my neck.
Oh my
I'm wearing my wig cap underneath, you know, so I look like I'm bald.
And you got to laugh anyway.
Yeah, of course. And I turn around and run off, and then everyone backstage is dying because they film the entire show, you know.
Oh, wow.
So they're watching this as it's oh my god. Yeah.
I once actually had my whole skirt fall off in a show.
Oh my
Once
goodness.
literally just went right down, and I'm like, okay, got to run off and fix that. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, right?
I once had
Totally.
a
It
dog
happens.
walk up on the stage doing Shakespeare, like outside in the park.
Oh, I love that. That's
That was
so
fun.
sweet.
But there's people,
cute.
there's like actors who won't acknowledge stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
And then-
weird to me.
And
That's
then there's
like,
me, who then like suddenly does a
Yeah.
whole monologue, which isn't the best choice either. But
well, I actually
Yeah.
think it's really important if you're in the moment to acknowledge, because everybody's seeing the dog.
Yeah.
or
So
the dropped handkerchief, or the
Right.
whatever it is.
It's
You gotta-
always
Yeah.
it's always a strange thing when people that's how you know they're not in the moment, right?
Right.
What's
right.
the
Yeah.
most bizarre job that you've been hired to do? Because people
Ooh.
listening, circus people like myself, I can now say, because I'm officially a character in that world.
You're a character, all right.
Yeah. We get asked to do weird things. We get asked to do weird events, openings,
Yeah.
closings, parties. What's the weirdest one? If you can tell us.
And I'm sure you've been asked to do a lot of weird things.
Yeah, I mean, I've done weird stuff, but not as weird as you'd think. It's more like the conditions I've been in.
Yeah,
There have
tell
been
us.
some
Tell us.
very weird conditions.
Tell us.
Like, okay, so warm up areas. I've been put in a bathroom, a broom closet, a basement with rats in it.
Ooh. Are these because they're
yeah.
private events and they're like, here, we have a broom closet for you to warm up
Yeah, they have nowhere for us to warm up. You know, you're getting stepped on by the catering staff.
Actors, the performers are the bottom of the
Right.
list.
Bottom of the ladder.
in? And
Absolutely.
is this because they're like private parties that you're being hired for? Is that what?
Yeah, so it's a variety of gigs, you know, everything from, I'd say, like the lower paying gigs, which would be like nightlife stuff, all the way up to, you know, the corporate gigs and the gallows where you're well paid, but surprisingly, a lot of the time you're very poorly treated backstage, that you won't get offered, you know, they don't offer you water or anything, like
Ugh.
forget food, but no water, you know, in these conditions that are really kind of shocking sometimes.
Like doing industrials and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess that's what you'd call corporate gigs.
Yeah, I guess industrials don't really happen as much as they used to, right?
What is the hardest, the hardest act, I guess, or part of your act that you do physically? Like, what is the
What's the
thing
most
that
challenging?
the most challenging? Thank you.
Well, I do a fair amount of hand balancing, so I'd say that's pretty challenging. And then I have a couple skills that kind of challenge the end ranges of my flexibility as well. So yeah, I would say that it's a combination of the hand balancing and then kind of the extreme flexibility. So I've had to pull back a little bit on the flexibility over the years. I've had several joint injuries. So I do maybe fewer skills, but I try to keep the skills that I do very clean and, comfortable as possible for me. I don't like to get on stage and feel like I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you don't. You're not
I
like
like
that.
to be, I like to be over prepared. If I have to hold a handstand for example, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, I'll be doing 2-minute holds in the gym. I'm an over preparer. I hate that feeling of like, oh God, am I going to be able to pull this off? Or being exhausted at the end of an act. Like I want to be able to manage it well.
Have you ever had a show where you were like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it through tonight. I'm so tired.
Totally. Oh my God. So many times, not just tired, but sick, everything across the board. Yeah. And the show must go on.
Do you have swings, understudies for the shows that you do? Like what happens if you actually
It
do
depends
get
on
sick
the
and you can't
size
finish?
of the show. It depends on the size and the budget of the show.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I was performing for an opera at the Metropolitan Opera at Lincoln Center, and we had swings for every performer for that.
That's good.
But usually no. Usually there isn't a swing. I mean, there might be like a backup act that can be thrown in last minute, but usually no. Like you have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
When I went to see The Hook, which is a Spiegel World show in Atlantic City, a friend of a friend was in it. I was curious anyway. After the show, he talked to us and he was like, oh, I'm so mad. I'm so upset you guys came tonight. And we were like, what, why? He's like, oh, two of the acts didn't happen. Like this one was sick and this one, broke their clavicle, whatever. And I'm like, we didn't see them, so we wouldn't miss them, right?
Right.
You wouldn't know,
right? But that's the thing in circus is you just take out that track. That's it. You just take out that track. But that usually means another 2 hours of rehearsal to figure out how to get in and out of the space that used to be that track,
Right, because it's not so easy just to throw something like that in because there's
not at all.
Mechanics
in the
behind
beginning, like Lara, I'm sure she did the show with COVID. She had to because there was nobody else besides her sister who lives, around the world who can do that balancing act. It's the end of the show, right? So she had to do the act. There was you couldn't see that show without that act. She would have to do that act.
What do you mean she did it with COVID? While COVID
well, because she
had COVID. Yeah,
we did the show
she was very sick.
You mean you're talking about after everybody was in lockdown?
Well, we're talking about when people were allowed to go out and buy tickets to see shows. And it was still going around. And it felt very weird for people in a show to wear masks. But also, the show isn't around. And it feels weird to look at people wearing masks.
Yeah.
So we were just all playing Russian roulette. And unfortunately, Lara got sick. But, if I got hit by a car, they would have to go into rehearsals for like 3 more hours to figure out how do we... I'm killing time a lot of the time. I'm filling space while something else is getting prepped. So that's how circus works. You just... They just cut.
And I will say, like with Cirque du Soleil, there is a program. So patrons will look at the picture in the program and say, for instance, where's this act? I didn't see it. And if it's, if it's an iconic act, many of them expect to see it, and they're like, no, I was supposed to see this act, not a juggler,
Yeah.
So they definitely encourage you to work when you're injured, when you don't feel well, all of these things,
So what is next for you?
What is next for me? That's a good question. So I have a few projects that I'm involved in. I'm actually working with my sister on a show right now.
Yay.
It's a 30-minute cabaret. Yeah. And it's being performed at Casa Cipriani, which is kind of a really cool. Do you know about this?
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know about this show at all, but it's a great location.
Where is it?
Yeah. So it's this nautical themed hotel right down by Staten Island Ferry. So it's all the way downtown.
Yeah, the South Ferry Station.
And when does it run?
So it's just for, there's a members club at Cipriani. It's kind of like a
I've
Soho
seen
House
that.
type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's currently just being performed for them. and it's like a dinner and then this cabaret show. And we'll see where that goes. And then I'm actually still part of the cast of Moonrise, which is sort of on break right now. We'll see where that goes. And then I'm also I work with clients. I teach people one-on-one. Yeah. So few irons in the fire.
You have to let me know when you're performing. I so want to come see you when it's something I
yes,
can
absolutely.
come into. Not
yeah,
Cosmic
I'll take
Cipriani.
you to Moonrise if
Oh my
I'm
God,
not
I
in
would
it.
love that. Well, even if you're in it, I'll come. I would like to come
well,
see.
then you have to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There I go again. But like now that I've fallen into this world, it's so much of it is word of mouth.
I want to see you do contortion work, Pete. That's all I can say.
Before I had my herniated disc, maybe, but
maybe.
That's the thing too, is like, I know that I'd have to change my act because in the past 2 years, my herniated disc has just flared up a lot. And
my sister has 2 herniated discs.
Well, and she's bending over backwards still.
Yeah.
Well, actually with herniated discs, bending backwards is
good.
It's better
it's
for
good.
you. Yeah, you don't want to leave. I'm not allowed to do yoga anymore. I have to only do Pilates. Not that I would do either, but no twisting. No twisting. Anyway, I was saying like to my sister, the chiropractor, it's sad because I feel like as I'm getting older, there's just things that I won't be able to do anymore.
Well,
and
that's
not quite,
life, right?
Yeah, but I'm not quite ready to accept that.
It's hard. It's hard to retire those things.
Yeah.
I had shoulder surgery in March of 2021, and it's never been the same. And I'm like, that's just, that you just realize, okay, that's what happens.
So what does that mean, Nancy? You're taking the shimmy act out of your...
well, I can't, you can't see this, but see, I can't do...
Yeah.
So you can't play Evita.
I can't do Evita. Like one arm is just never... I'm going to look like it's it's just a weird V, right? There's just certain things that you can't do as you get older. Things happen. It's life,
That's
but
right.
then you morph into whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
And then the younger ones, but someone like Anna is probably teaching younger ones to come in and do something new and take it from there.
We'll see a young Anna balancing in a water bowl.
That's right.
And
hey, I'm not done yet. I'm not retiring yet.
Okay. And listener, Anna is still young. I'm looking at Anna. She's not old.
Well, I don't know about that, but
no, I just meant she's going to fill her. She's going to take my student's going to fill in for the part that I don't really like doing that much.
Right.
Yeah, just the one handstand. I do everything else. She jumps in, stands on her hand, she goes away.
Yeah. No, it's really a process of learning to accept your body and, still keep a very high level of technique. It's very interesting. It's very humbling.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I know you. You're you're so inspirational. Thank you.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
Thank you.
And you please keep me posted so I can come see you perform.
Absolutely.
And maybe I'll even take a class if I get brave enough. Do you teach people like me, or is it really just people who want to do this?
Yeah. So my clients really vary from like people that want to do this professionally to people that I really do more like corrective exercise with, kind of rehab and prehab and stuff like that too.
Oh, interesting.
Rehab?
Mm-hmm.
I said no.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for checking us out. Links to today's guest can be found in the show notes.
Don't forget to subscribe, like us, rate us, and tell all your friends about arts and craft.